Welcome to a Love Ignites Peace Book Club podcast. We are so excited to have you join us tonight for this terrific book that we just read and are ready to discuss. Thank you for listening and thank you for tuning in every month. Our listenership just keeps going up and up and up, and we just want to let you know we are so grateful for you taking the time to listen to this podcast. Ashlyn and Teresa, you did not give Noelle and I the memo. It was hat night. Next time, will you please send out a notification?
We should have.
Well, do we have any updates from the group? Has anything happened over the last month that seems noteworthy to mention?
I got a car.
Ooh, big stuff.
And I, of course, used all of our years of muscle building spiritual practice to have it flow with ease and grace. So
you were a super attractor.
Yes, I was.
Ooh, I love this. I want to hear more.
No, you guys, it's what we do. Ask your guides, have it flow with ease. It should be easy. We shouldn't have to get all mucked up in everything. And you let go and ask, and it was easy. So it was a good practice. Something kind of big and meaty to actually validate and practice with.
Well, for all of you listening, the book that we are reading and have read for August is Super Attractor by Gabby Bernstein. So Teresa's manifesting a car was very appropriate.
Yeah, it really was.
Well, I'm so excited to hear how you, Noelle, and Teresa like the book. It's time to read the summary, Mom. Do you want to read it?
I would be happy to. Thank you. So the book this month, as we mentioned, is Gabby Bernstein's Super Attractor. This book is a journey of remembering where your true power lies. You'll learn how to co-create the life you want. You'll accept that life can flow, that manifesting miracles is fun, and that you don't have to work so hard to get what you want. Most importantly, you'll feel good. And when you feel good, you give off a presence of joy that elevates everyone around you. Claiming the truth that you are a super attractor will change everything. You'll trust that it's safe to release the past, and you'll no longer fear the future. You'll tap into an infinite source of abundance, energy, happiness, and well-being. This well-being will become the norm for you, and you'll know intuitively how to show up for life and bring more light to the world around you, empowering you to be a super attractor. That was kind of a big rah-rah for the book.
Well, we're every super attractors, don't you think?
We are. Everybody on this podcast is a super attractor. That is 100% for sure.
And the reality is every person listening can be a super attractor.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things I love about everything we talk about in Love Ignites Peace is this is accessible to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you aren't quite sure, it is.
Well, the reality is you're a super attractor already, and you don't even know that you're a super attractor. That's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
So when you can really funnel that energy into attracting what you want to attract consciously, then I would say you become a super-de-duper attractor or a super attractor. I would rename this book being a conscious super attractor. No title.
That one. I think there's something important. We're all talking about the super attractor. We're mindful of that. We are friends because of it. And it kind of got me thinking all the sayings of birds of a feather, water seeks its own level, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are just phrases that are the same as a super attractor. So people that are listening to this, or you may know someone that says, "God, why does everything go wrong?" Well, they're also a super attractor, and they're attracting the whole other side of it. So I just think it's an important key point to at least bring up once, to be conscious of what our words are, what our thinking. Look around. Who do you hang around with? What are those people saying? Because that's super attracting, one way or the other. That's my 2 tidbits there.
I know we've had some discussion on this idea that we feel like we already know this stuff. Everybody on this podcast has studied this stuff. I mean, we've read many books. In fact, we read many of the books that Gabby Bernstein even references in the book that she has used to write this book. But what I want to say is, I think if you are just starting your journey, that this book is a really important book for you to read. Really important, because truly, she has taken years and years of study and knowledge. And I have to say, hats off to Gabby. She has put this in a very simple, concise, easy to understand. I think there were like 11 chapters, maybe 10, 9, 10, 11 chapter book, which is really astounding when you consider all the different things that we've all read over the years and how we've had to synthesize all of that information. So I highly recommend it.
That's your answer to question 6.
Yeah.
I guess
it's time for dessert.
Well, let's go back to the OG question, which is every chapter is filled with simple and super wisdom. What chapter really spoke to you based on where you are on your journey to being a super attractor and why?
I can jump in. Again, you can see all of you that are, if you're actually looking, I have marked up my book quite a bit. For me, it's like this whole section of, 20 pages on the invisible guidance. It was chapter 6, and I think it goes from chapter 6 to chapter 7, almost in the middle of the book. And it really is all about your guides, your angels, the spirit realm, so to speak, that you can't see. That's who I work with. That's what I practice. That's who I built relationships with. So for me, it was an important part of the book, and I was very, very happy that she spent so much time, almost step by step, explaining guides, get to know them, etc. For me, did I learn anything from that like a newbie? No, but not that I even need validation, but it just made me feel so good that part was so well written and explained. And anybody, after we do our book review, it's an important part to get to know this divine universe that we live in, and what a blessing that we can have access and tap into it. So that would be mine.
And if you want more information on this idea of these angels and guides out there for you, we did a book club podcast, my gosh, 18 months ago or more, on a book called Angels in Your Hair. And I highly recommend, if you haven't listened to that podcast, that you go back and listen to that podcast, because there was so much information about this divine guidance that was discussed and is in that book, Angels in Your Hair by Laura Byrne.
And to tag on to Teresa, I loved that chapter as well. It was affirming of the importance of that. And then my next one that I feel goes hand in hand is then it's chapter 11, having unwavering faith in the universe. So those relationships are really good, but just that reminder of having faith that behind the scenes, all of that is working, and that it is all coming in divine timing. And I'll talk about another chapter a little bit later that kind of ties into that. But just that faith, or that knowing, or that belief that everything is happening for you in its correct divine timing. So just, unwaveringly knowing that or something better is coming your way.
I love that. And I just looked up the season 1, episode 30 is the Angels in My Hair discussion by Lorna Brine.
Do you think, Flynn?
What did I think? I loved the chapter, actually chapter 2, one about feeling good. So I, like Teresa, have for those that can see, many highlights, as well as sticky notes, and I have literally, what's hilarious is, so many sticky notes. And so,
Oh my gosh. Do you recycle those?
I don't. So again, we'll save the what did we think for the book in general, but I adore her work. And I think that it's one of those things where obviously we're aware of so many of the concepts. And I will say there were some concepts where I was like, okay, I really know this. I'm not taking a ton of notes. But there are such good daily reminders and nudges for how to embody the teachings that we know. Because it's one thing to know it, but it's another thing to live it. And this book, as well as I think The Universe Has Your Back, which is another one that we've done on book club, truly, I think, helps you do that. But one thing about the chapter that I was discussing, which is It's Good to Feel Good, which is chapter 2, is I think it's an easy thing for us to all start to become aware of. We create from our feelings. And I don't think as many of us are conscious of that. So if you're listening, this is a nudge to be like, whoa, you create from your feelings. And not only do you create from your feelings, but the universe is nudging you to feel good. And that means have fun. That means feel joy. That means whatever it is to feel good. So I liked this quote on page 16. Let good feeling emotions gently lead you back into alignment with your true nature. There's just so many little notes in this chapter of actionable discussions, like the choose again method, right? So the choose again method talked about step 1, recognizing there's a moment of misalignment. Step 2, forgiving this misalignment. And then step 3, reaching for the feeling that is one you can access. So you might not be able to go from devastation to joy, but what's a feeling that you can reach just a step above that? Keep reaching for that next feeling to change your state and change your experience and change what you're manifesting. And so I just thought it was a really good one to bring conscious awareness and embodiment to, as well as very actionable for anyone and everyone, right?
I was going to say simply actionable. Like three steps that are, you don't have to have a Post-it note, although it is fun. I also like Post-it notes, but just 3 things, simple reminders, if you're aware.
I used this book, I guess, more than I even was aware that I thought I did. 2 days ago, I got a phone call from my sister up in Oregon. And she's the one that when my daughter and I went to visit in the summer and we landed and her top of her whole house was burning down. And they've been in a hotel and she just got into their rental this week. And of course, when any major thing happens between family, husband and wife, a lot of stuff comes bubbling up. And she called me and she said she was in a tough place. And I said, well, let's do something real quick here. We finished our conversation. We did it by text because she had to go to work. She works at the hospital. I texted her, let's go back and forth and do 10 things we are appreciative for. We only had to come up with 5, but I thought, how can I quickly get her out of a funk without Teresa going into the preaching thing, which sometimes I kind of do. Don't mean to, but it just comes off. And it ended up being a fun thing, but we went back and forth, didn't take but a few minutes. And she sent me a text early this morning that her and her husband are going to he agreed to go to counseling. And I really feel that our conversation and going into that appreciative really made a difference. And I was consciously using what you just talked about. So I call it segmenting because that's how I kind of first read it with Abraham Hicks. She calls it something else, but it's a good tool. So that was my experience just very recently. In appreciation, we feel good. And when we feel good, we are appreciative.
Yeah, I love it. And it definitely references as well chapter 4, which is having fun along the way, which is where she does talk about going up that emotional guidance scale. It's kind of funny because we're talking about one chapter at a time, but truly they bleed into each other. Then there was a whole chapter on appreciation, right?
Yeah.
Mama, how about you? Did you have a favorite chapter?
I did have a favorite chapter, and it really is indicative of where I am in my life. And that was chapter 7, which was do less and attract more. I've been in the summer of play, and I'm going to continue to have a very wonderful balance of play and work. And yes, I put play before work because, and again, like you said, it all bleeds into each other. I love the reminder, have fun, do more with less, set your intentions, talk to your guides, stop pushing. And she talks about in that chapter how pushing is actually one of our greatest blocks to manifesting. So when we know what we want, we're taking action toward that. We have this ability to let go and to do more or do less, and you're still manifesting and you're still doing that. And I just think that is such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful message. Like, we don't have to push, force.
Right.
That's what we've been programmed to do, but that doesn't help you manifest any faster.
It does. There's no joy in that pushing unless you're giving birth and you have a baby that comes out at the end of it. But really, and you saying that, referencing that page, it took me back when reading the 4-Day Work Week. We don't have to work what America has become 7 days a week, like 90 hours a week, and blah, 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 blah. Most of the other countries do not work like we do. And so I love that that was what you're bringing forth, Paige. It's an important part of our humanity that we forget about. Yeah.
There was one quote from that chapter on page 126. There is a force of love within you and around you, supporting your every move. The way to access this force is to simply get out of the way.
Yeah, true that.
So I've been enjoying a summer of play, just getting out of my own way.
One thing I've just so loved in reading this book and so many of the other books is how they go together so well. Like, these messages are so consistent from book to book. And I always think back to Love Money, Money Loves You, which is the book that was the channeled message from the energy of money. And probably my number one takeaway, one of my number one takeaways, there were many from that book, but relates to what you just said, Mom, where it's just like, the energy of money was like, have fun. Let us flow. Like, it's like, look at us like a friendship, right? How do you want to treat a friend? Are you going to hold on to your friend like with tight white knuckles and or like force them? No. A friend doesn't respond to that. The universe doesn't respond to that. So yeah, we were talking about the energy of money, but this translates in this book to everything. And so I do love that, Mom. And I was thinking today, all of you loyal podcast listeners who we love so much, last year I kept talking about this guy that I had been talking to, and he is living the embodiment of force. I mean, he gets up at 2:00 in the morning, works till 11 p.m. He is losing relationships in his life. He's missing out on different opportunities, and he is just like going after this little nugget, it's a nugget of money that he believes if he pushes super hard for these 5 years, he'll get. And I had this moment sitting here today reading this book, just going, I believe that we will make 5 times that money by sitting here and trusting and flowing and enjoying. In fact, this year, the most money, my most profitable month of the year so far will be this month, which is August of 2024, and I'm taking 2-week vacation to Europe. And I already can tell you that my most profitable month of the year thus far, now I envision more profitable months to come, is going to be this month, but I'm going to be playing. But I already know, like, I've already, like, from my consulting and everything, like, this will be the most profitable month I've had so far. And I just think it's just so interesting how you step into that play and that surrender and that fun, and how it can flow more easily and tenfold to what you think you can get from the push.
This is a whole new, different way of thinking, a different way of training our brain, of really letting go of fear and just stepping into that place of faith.
I know in my business, I have found I still can get the exact quality and content of work accomplished, but I don't have to work 90 hours, 60 hours, 75 hours a week to do it. I'm not sitting on the sofa either, just going, okay, the universe is just going to run it. But we've all learned to trust enough that we're in movement. And even when we play, we're using the energy to generate and attract. That's the nugget of faith, I think, in that.
And
I
joy.
totally agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and appreciation.
And I think every one of the chapters that we picked actually is found in this chapter 7 of being able to let go and just allow it to happen.
It's funny, the conversation we're having is making me think of our next question, which is there a time which you would have or should have applied this knowledge to create a different experience? And I'm going to speak to that really quickly because it goes exactly to what you were just talking about, Teresa. I wish that I would have had this knowledge at the beginning of 2023, end of 2022. So we launched Love Ignites Peace in October of 2022. And, we were doing lots of good things, but I got into the mindset of like, it is the grind. Like when I went into 2023, first of all, I was so stressed in December of 2022. We were at Christmas, on Christmas vacation, and I could barely even relax because I was so stressed with all the things I needed to be doing. And I was putting all this pressure on myself. And ultimately, when I started literally in January of 2023, I was like, I am committing completely to this business and this vision. I'm not going out. I'm not making plans. Like, I'm talking like I was like, I am fully focused on making this dream come true, which is amazing. But it was not from this energy of super attractor alignment. It was like so low vibe that in that energy, I got burnt out like twice. And the long short of where I'm getting at here is just that I wish I would have known what I know now then, because I would have been able to look at myself and go, my sweet, sweet friend, this is not how you're going to create the success that you're looking for. This is not the energy to do that from. And it doesn't serve you and it doesn't serve anyone else. And it's kind of funny, the domino effect, right? So it wasn't serving the business. Yeah, some things were getting done, but like beyond that, then also with my energy out of alignment, you're not manifesting. And then the way I'm showing up in other people's lives, now I'm not being the light, as the Super Attractor book talks about. I'm not bringing the positive energy because I barely have anything to go from. So it's just so interesting. But yes, Teresa, I agree with you. And sometimes we have the biggest things happen when we're like on vacation.
A vacation every day. There is no reason, because it's a feeling. There is moments, and I do really mean this. I have moments of a feeling of a vacation every day in my life. And it might be just as simple as my daughter calls and says, you want to make a Starbucks run. To me, that's a timeout and a vacation. So it's a mindset of how we want to perceive it. I love a vacation every day. Do I love going away for 4 weeks or 2 weeks or 4 days? Sure. But those little moments every day sure add up. And why not have a vacation every day?
When Ian got married, Ashley and I were in Phoenix. We were there for the whole week of the wedding, and we released a podcast. And the podcast we released that day that we were in Phoenix for Ian's wedding had our most downloads in one day ever. I think it was 4,000 in one day.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're on vacation. And it is funny. It's like, you go on vacation, you meet a client, you go, like, it's just so interesting how it works. But that is the law. I mean, it is the law of not go on vacation. This book, to be clear, did not say go on vacation. There was no chapter 12, go on vacation, although we could add it. But it's what happens with your feelings, with your energy, with your do less, with your appreciation, with everything we just talked about. That occurs when you go on vacation. So I love it.
So a time in my life, I know you guys like, because I always give this answer. I wouldn't change anything because I mean, if you pull it back to divine timing. But I do wish I wouldn't have worried, right? That I had the faith and I had the knowing and I didn't. So I could have given up the worry because I didn't change anything except for not allow me to be in the joy in the moment because you're worried about when will that come? Will it come? You know, that a whole self-doubt which will pull you down. But, you know, what chapter was that? Waiting for the universe to catch up to my dreams? Is that patience and allowing, right? I think that was chapter 10. Let the universe catch up with your dream. So you put your dream out there, and if you hold on to it really tightly, why isn't it coming? Then of course it's gonna slip out of your grasp. But just allow it to come when it is to come is what I wish I would have known, right? Instead of trying to force. So
That's so good.
I've been very blessed. I think there are people who worry and there are people who don't. That is something that luckily it's not part of my makeup. Have I been concerned at times? Okay, but that's very different than worry. So when a moment comes up, what I have learned, and I've shared what somebody asked, those questions of, well, when, or how, well, what's going to happen? All those who, what, when, how. I always look at those as every time it's asked, you're taking a step back from the power and joy of what could be. The second thing and I'm pretty quick with the practice now if those questions do come up, is my belief in the spirit divine world is so strong that if I do ask those questions, I feel like I'm just slapping them in the face. It's just a slap in the face. And I love it too much to do those questions. Does that make sense?
It's really interesting. It's like you almost feel like it's a step back from your faith to question versus doing what Noelle was suggesting from her chapter of let the universe catch up with your dreams. That's so interesting.
Once you put it out there and gosh, this is my desire. Every time I ask when or how's it going to happen, I just took a step back because I'm not in complete trust mode. It's just going to take longer.
And I think if we think about, like we talked about who we think this book is best for, it might be people that have spent a lot of their time in that worry, concern. So if you're just picking up this book, there are a lot of tools in here that can move you out of that space that I was in long ago, but now that allowing will just come to be if you practice the methods and ideas and practices that are in this book. I think that we will spend more time in that, knowing that the universe has our back from Gabby's first book, but also just allowing it to come in divine right timing.
I think I very much would be that person and could have had the tendency to be a person that was very worried and very forceful if I didn't have my faith, if I didn't have my belief system, which Gabby's books sum up so many of the things I believe so strongly and so well. And that's brought me peace and that's brought me flow and that's brought me trust. But I definitely think and empathize, Noah, with you talking about having been worried and all of that. Like, I think even if my favorite apparent topic to discuss on book club, my love life, I think I would be like, oh my God, is it ever going to happen? And I'm like, no, like I have total faith and trust in the divine timing. Like it's all good. And one, we talk about spiritual energy work with Tracy, which obviously we offer through Loving Knight's Peace. You can book at lovingnightspeace.com if you're looking for some deeper spiritual work. But I, have a session with her every week and I absolutely love it. She clears my energy space. She also gives divine messages. And one of the most common messages that I hear is don't force it. Trust the timing. And not just about my love life. I'm talking like work things. I'm talking anything. It's like trust the divine flow. And like, it just goes back to this thought, like if it's on your heart, there's a reason it's on your heart. So know that that will come to fruition for you in some way, especially if you can align your energy in the super attractor way. And one last thing, Teresa, I totally get where you're coming from about not asking and that kind of being a slap. But I also think that Gabby offered some really interesting things in discussing that, which is it's okay to ask for a sign.
That's different than, well, this is taking so long. When is that going to happen? That. Maybe I wasn't clear on those questions.
No, I very much agree with what you're saying in the sense of like, well, when's it going to happen? I totally get what you're saying. I'm just adding to that like, but also like Gabby was discouraged about her journey of fertility, right? It was taking her 3 years and she's like, when is it going to happen? When am I going to have this baby? But in asking in the way she asked, maybe that's what it is, right? It's the way you ask, right?
The way
it
you
wasn't
ask.
when.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like,
Mhm.
give me a sign like that I'm on the right path, or give me a sign about this journey. Please, speak to me. And she had some incredible signs. So yeah, maybe that's the delineation.
Well, that's a good, like, we could go real deep into that. So using, say, her fertility, it's very different in her getting angst about it and why is this taking so long? I'm doing everything, versus, oh, wow, this has been a year. You know what? That year has given me time to explore my body. I've been able to communicate with my spouse. What am I learning and growing? Then that tempers down that anxiety, or now I'm in, wow, okay, this has taken a long time. Look at all I've done. I went on a vacation. I did this. It's shifting a mindset, I guess. I don't know. Which wolf are you going to feed? I guess that old saying.
I actually thought that was one of the most important pieces of wisdom from this book was her fertility journey and her shifting her perspective around that from, oh gosh, another month that I'm not pregnant, to just staying in that gratitude for, oh, I'm so grateful for this child who's coming into our lives.
It is coming. One way or another, it will come.
You know, what I really liked about that part of the book, and actually she wove it throughout the book. It felt like it really tampered what can be like spiritual ego, because she shared like her vulnerability about her questioning things, her frustration with fertility. She shared stories of other friends that were struggling. So I felt like that made it really palpable for people that are, I mean, actually, I'm guessing we all are. It's not like we're 100%. Like, I never worry about anything. And I mean, obviously, less and less worry in our lives. But I think that she did a really good job. I mean, she's obviously someone highly spiritual. She talks about it. She immerses herself in it. She embodies it most of the time, but she's also human. And that human side of her. And I think she really did a great job sharing that in this book. I listened to the book, and just like I listened to Universe Has Your Back, and I think like it just feels very human and also spiritual, which is what we are. So I feel like she did a really beautiful job weaving those stories throughout. And her concern about her fertility is a real situation that many, many, many millions of people in the world face. And I think she is like your companion. You need this book in your back pocket. You need a Gabby there reminding you that you're going to ebb and flow with the emotions that go with that. And if you practice these pieces, it will help pull you out of that lower density emotions into those higher emotions.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing that you touched on, Noelle. I can't speak for everybody on this podcast, but I know that I don't stay 24/7, 365 days of the year in this on fire with life and, joy. You have low moments, and occasionally something happens that is concerning, because we're all just humans negotiating this journey of being able to stay in that high vibe energy as much as possible. And it's okay if we're not in there for a minute. The world's not going to end.
Well, I think that's why they call it a spiritual practice, because we're, we don't work out just, one day a year. You keep going, or you have a buddy that I'll pick you up for yoga today, because I could probably talk myself out of it. It's the spirituality is the same thing. Who's your spiritual? If you don't have a spiritual buddy and you're on this journey of self-awareness all of a sudden, have her be your spiritual buddy. She's got 2 good books. I think they're basic, easy books. Use them. Let that be your spiritual buddy until you start super attracting your community.
Let this podcast be one of your spiritual buddies. Yeah, we are so here to support you on your journey, no matter where you are on that journey, because all of us had to start at some point. We didn't just wake up here. And in fact, the question that was asked that we're discussing is, is there a time which you wish you would have had this knowledge to create a different experience? Well, the answer is resoundingly yes. 22 years ago, I was not the person I am today, and I hadn't even started my spiritual journey, but we were starting a business, and that business literally took every single dollar we had. We had everything mortgaged. We had $120,000 on credit cards. And then, like 30 days in, one of the deals that I had done went bad, and I never, ever in my history had this happen before. I spent the entire weekend in fear so profound that I could not sleep for 48 hours. And so, it would have been great to be where I am 22 years ago, where I am now, because it would have created a whole different experience. But also, to Noelle's point, that starting that business was one of my greatest teachers in this idea of trust and faith and letting go, and it's all going to be okay. No matter how it turns out, it's going to be okay.
So would you say, Mama, that's your answer to a time you wish you could have applied this knowledge?
Yes. My weekend of 48 hours of not sleeping, being so afraid that we were going to lose everything that we had, and we had also borrowed money from my husband's family, and that was my biggest fear. Was it was okay if we had to go live in a trailer, but I could not imagine not paying back my husband's family.
Wow.
No, I think that's beautiful. It's a big teacher for you.
It was a huge teacher for me. Yeah, huge teacher.
I think you bring up a really interesting point, and you've touched on this earlier, but if I were to add a chapter to this, it would be about the people you surround yourself with. Because, right, iron sharpens iron. That's, you're a product of your 5 closest people to you. And she does talk about, setting boundaries with those that don't support your vision and keeping it to yourself, perhaps, if it's someone that's not going to be supportive, or getting really certain in your beliefs so that when you share it, that from a super attractor space, no one will push you back. But I do think there is something so beautiful to the people that we surround ourselves with to help us stay in this space, to remind us of our truths, to push us, even sometimes when we don't necessarily want to be pushed, but we need to be pushed. And I think that there's something to living the super attractor power that comes from those around you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you think about the book, there's so many little pieces that could have been moved into that chapter, because she supports that idea throughout this whole book.
Yeah.
I think that was a very wise suggestion, Ashlyn. I really do. Very astute suggestion.
I hope she is listening to this podcast, because we've given her several ideas for either another book or an extension of this book.
For sure. Well, we still haven't heard, Teresa, a time in which you should have or would have applied this knowledge to create a different experience.
I think most of us are, again, on the same page. To rewind, good and bad, that's worked out pretty good for me. What I would say is that the length of time I spent in different situations may have been shorter. That would be, that would maybe be my thing, which my love language is time. So, of course, I would like those perceived struggles or moments, maybe not changing hindsight, but being shorter. And this material or the books we read, I think would have helped shorten the time. Not eliminate it, the experience, just shorten the time.
Going back to what you said earlier, Mom, about how you don't feel good all the time. That's part of life. That's part of our soul's journey. That's part of growth. But tying into what you just said, Teresa, literally Gabby, and who I cannot find it in this book of underlines and stickies, but she literally talks about that shortening that time through these practices found in this book is a expression of your spiritual maturity, to get from point A to point B, to not spiral, to not go all the way down to the bottom, is spiritual maturity in practice. So I totally see that. And obviously, Teresa, you have spiritually matured because you've now shortened the time.
Wow. It's only taken me almost 70 years. So I guess that's a good thing.
Better late than never.
Better late than never. Hey, I'll get on that boat all day long.
And I'm sure all of us on this call, from the time we started our spiritual journey, which we know is the get-go, but the time we were aware of our spiritual journey, our time that's spent in the low vibrational spots, those low vibe spots, or in those lower vibrational emotions, has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. And we can notice it quicker and quicker and quicker. And we have the tools to pull ourselves.
I literally had a moment where I was like, there are two paths here. I can spiral into exhaustion, like overwhelm, overwork, over socialize, or I can stop and do a reset right here and move up on this emotional ladder, this frequential ladder, whichever one you want to go, go with. And I chose that. And I'm telling you, it changed my entire experience. And I felt so, so, so good. So I was really honestly proud of myself. I was like, wow, I didn't need to go into this old pattern of tired, overwhelm, and needing to be validated by that either. I was like, I can just choose the choose again method, tap into something to help raise my vibration, and run along happily ever after. So anyways,
look at that maturity and the spiritual maturity.
Ashlyn at age 28, she is leaps and bounds where I was at age 28. She is running a whole different race than what I was running at age 28.
Me too. I was divorced with 2 kids and already had a man thinking we might get married one day at your age. Who would have thought? So look at the quicker decisions, the trusting, all the different experiences, and the time creates much different opportunities. And what's that movie, Sliding Door? Which one are you going to go? Which one now can you go through? So it's kind of cool, Ashlyn.
Yay, Gen Z.
Thank you. Yeah.
100%.
It's fun to watch, honestly. It is. I'm not amazed, but I'm just like, wow. So often in stories and how your generation is just letting go, and the time is such quicker where you're at. So hats off, but I'd have hat head.
Same. No, it is interesting, right? I'm on that borderline. I'm born in 96. So it's like the year where it's like, am I millennial? Am I Gen Z? But even looking at the people 10 years younger than me, it's stuff like this podcast that we're doing, that they're tapping into because they want to learn. They want to grow. They are ready. Yep. Now, I also hope and imagine that the boys, the men out there, are also finding spaces to tap into this, because I'm seeing it so often with women, but it's essential that we heal this divine masculine and go down to that journey as well. But that's a conversation for another day, I suppose.
Well, there is hope. I know your brother, your son, you're right in that zone. My son just turned 33. He's aware. Does he practice every day, maybe like we do? But he's on it and he understands it, and we communicate with it. So I think there is knowledge and understanding out there for sure.
Yeah.
And I would say my son is the same. He knows it, he gets it, but he may not always tap into it.
They may not, that male population might not communicate it the way that women bond and communicate over it. But I do think there is an awareness of it. So,
Ian has a tattoo, and I wish I could quote it, but he has only one tattoo. And that tattoo is basically what you think you become, what you feel.
You attract.
Yeah, I can't
what
remember
what you believe you create, or something like that.
That's cool.
And I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about here tonight.
Sure is. Yeah.
So, if you could impart one bit of wisdom from the book to our listeners in their daily lives, what would it be?
Pay attention. Pay attention to your thoughts. Your thoughts become beliefs. Your beliefs become reality. Your emotions come from your thoughts. All of those are attracting what comes into your life. So pay close attention to those. Raise your awareness. Use the choose again method. Use the choose again method from this book.
Okay.
You are not alone on this journey. You're not doing this in a vacuum. You have guidance that you cannot see that is just there waiting for you to ask and call upon it. And even on this earth, you have support, even though maybe we're not there to have a daily conversation with you about it. We're supporting you in this process. Just really have faith and trust that you are not alone. Ask, 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 and it will be granted.
My biggest one, Paige, I would have to go with you, which was going back to the very first question. It's the whole, your guides, that whole spiritual realm. It's exactly what you're saying. It is there. It is real. Get to know it and build a relationship with it. And I think that's really what she was really trying to say in that whole part, invisible guidance. Get to know every part of this divine world. It's there, it's real, and the energy will show you. It'll be there. You'll see it. You'll know it.
Mine would be that you are way more powerful than you even realize. And you don't need to all of a sudden be on an Eat, Pray, Love journey through India to find that power. You can start finding that power today by, as Noelle said, using the choose again method, just becoming super aware of your feelings and get control of those. Feel it, let it flow through you, move up to the next level. You might not be able to jump from sadness to joy, but can you jump 1 or 2 rings? Can you just move a little bit up in your feelings every day in a way that can help you create and attract the life of your dreams? And really, can you live from joy? Can you live from appreciation? Can you live from love? At the end of the day, your feelings will create your reality. So start trying to feel better in everything that you do, because you are powerful.
Love it.
All right. So how would you rate this book on a scale of 1 to 5? And would you recommend this book? I'm just going to start because I gave my answer at the beginning of the podcast to that question. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give this book a 5. I just am so impressed with Gabby Bernstein's ability to simplify these concepts and put them in language that can be easily assimilated and easily understood.
I'm going to give it 2 scores. I'm going to give it, I'm new to this world and where I am now. So if I were new to this world, I would definitely give it a 5. It's a very, very simple, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a simple step-by-step way to approach your spiritual life. But for me, as a person who I am now, the books that I pick up now for myself, I would probably give it a 2 or a 3, just because of where I am. But I really, I felt like if I put myself in that position when I read The Universe Has Your Back for the first time back in, I think, right when it came out, it was eye-opening to me. And I feel like this book has that same potential. So those are my 2 scores.
Well, I'm going to combine kind of Noelle, what she said, a newbie and more practice. So I'm going to give it a 4 minus. It's a very basic, good handbook for someone's. Even I'm curious. Maybe they're not even in the practice yet. She references so many guru types that reading the book might lead you to some of those books. So reading it from where I am now, it was just basic. Not that that's a bad thing. It reminded me of some things. And I thought, Teresa, sometimes you got to get back to basics, because I do meet a lot of people that are new. And I would be honored and confident in recommending this book to someone curious. So that's my 4 minus. That makes sense.
Does. I'm going to tag off of the fact that you feel like there are some basics, and I'm going to say that's one of the reasons I'm going to give it a 5. I think that sometimes we forget the basics, and I truly, truly cherish and respect so much how all of her books, well, I guess the 2 I've read, this one and The Universe Has Your Back. I guess I shouldn't speak to all of them, but they really are the foundation, I think, to living basic principles that will truly change your life and take it from a 4 to a 10 or 4 to an 8. And she doesn't overcomplicate it, and you don't have to spend a whole year studying A Course in Miracles. She's distilled it down for us to process, and I would recommend, I treat these books really like a daily guide. So I think that I would feel a lower score if I just Zoom read the book, like if I was just reading the chapters to read the chapters and get the book done. But if I take this book, let's say a couple pages at a time, that just creates the world of difference for me, because I'm able to really take line by line some of the powerful truths that she's sharing, which is how I've ended up with 792 sticky notes, because like literally I really do use it in a way that like I can write one sticky note and let that be my focus for the day. Like I'm just trying to find one here, but like, assuming an energy of joy is the fastest way to achieve success. Now, what if I just focus on that all day long? Like it's one of those things where there was so much information that I could just zoom past it and be like, yeah, I know the basics. I know I have guides. I know I should feel joy okay too. But like, it's so much deeper than that is how I feel when I read it. So I am not a newbie to it. These are not new concepts, but these are concepts that I think are deeply impactful and change my daily life. So I give it a 5.
Okay.
I think you make a really good point, Ashlyn, in that like it is, if you read the book and you're not that familiar, or you're just starting this journey of being a conscious super attractor, then you're gonna kind of get an overview, but these are concepts you have to go back and revisit and work with and sit with in order to really absorb how this becomes a innate reality for you.
Yeah, it's the difference between knowledge and embodiment.
Yes.
Like I literally, like one of my sticky notes here literally says embodiment, because that is part of just my journey, is not just knowing the truths, but living the truths, letting it become a part of you. And I think that if you take it a little bit slower, this book, you can really integrate a lot of these things because they're so accessible, like we talked about, just changing your feelings kind of thing.
Wise words out of the mouth of our youngest member on the podcast here tonight.
That ties right in. I was going to say, as I was reading this, I was actually, and I guess I look at a lot of the books that I read with this lens, can I turn this into curriculum for kids? It's just kind of the way I read it. And if you look even at probably a lot of things, Ashlyn, that you wrote on your Post-its were a lot of the subheadings. Be satisfied with what is. Don't sabotage the good feeling flow. Ride the wave of positivity. I can just see turning that into a lesson, right? And so out of the mouths of the youngest one, into ideally the minds of babes, the littles.
Mhm.
That's so amazing. And that's what's so cool
Yeah.
about your work too. Like imagine, we're talking about me being a little bit younger. Imagine you're 5 years old, you're 6 years old, you're 7, you're 8, you're 9, you're 10, and you're like, I'm riding the good waves. I'm not stopping the flow of joy. Joy is my birthright. Like, what would our world look like? Versus trying to go through all the yucky and then finding this later.
Pretty freaking amazing is what it would look like.
It would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if trying to decide where you go to college or if you should play a sport, you're not like pushing it, you're just trusting what's meant for you. And I mean, there's just so many things upon the journey this can apply to, especially from being that young child to adult.
All right, so our next book for September is a very old book. It's called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It is a short read. It will not take you long to read, but it is one of those books where I think we all know these love languages. And I think it's going to be a really good book for all of us to revisit. It'll be a quick read for September. And we really have an opportunity to look at our relationships and I think the nuances in those relationships that we potentially forgotten about. So I'm excited to read this book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, again. I read it probably 20 years ago.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where you might think, oh, I know the 5 love languages because we've talked about it, but do you really know it? There's more to dive into. And like my mom said, should be kind of a quicker read, but I think it's an opportunity for us to dive a little bit deeper into understanding each other better and loving each other better and feeling more loved.
Yeah,
which is
absolutely
a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So,
all right, Ashley, take us out with our closing quote.
Yes. So the quote I wanted to end off here with, just because we are love ignites peace, is the most important element of manifesting with the universe is to embody the energy of love. And here we're trying to help you all become the frequency of love, to live as the frequency of love. And so how beautiful to embody that and how it can transform your life. I mean, living as love and being the love, not only can you manifest, not only does it feel good, not only does it change your world and your communities. I mean, there's so much good that comes from being love. So again, the most important element of manifesting with the universe is to embody the energy of love. So I hope you all can go out and be the love today.
Read with us next month as we continue this theme of embodying the energy of love. Love for yourself and love for others. With that note, as always, I'm sending you love from my heart to yours. Create a fabulous month, and we will see you in September.
Get your freak on.